Hey there, and welcome back to Discover What You're Born to Do. I'm so glad you're here. I love being able to help you find work that's natural for you, both for the short term and the long term. I get the frustration of hopping from job to job or industry to industry without feeling like you're getting any traction, without feeling a sense of how it's all working together, and without knowing that you are where you're meant to be. By really doing the work in each part of this course, you'll emerge with a better understanding of how to choose each step of your career path, as well as how it all works together. By the end of our time together, you'll understand how to know when an opportunity is right for you and how to avoid what looks good on paper but isn't right for you in the long run. This week, we're going to talk about your learned strengths. These are things that you've learned and mastered over time. Unlike your inborn strengths that we covered last week, these strengths are skills and abilities that you've learned and practiced. To start, let's take a look at our roadmap, review what we've done so far, and see where we're going. Remember, to find work that matters to you, you need to know three things. The first is who you are. The second is how to make decisions that are aligned with who you are. And the third is what you want. Here's where we are on the roadmap. In our first week, we covered the first part of who you are, your affective strengths, your preferences and values. Last week, we talked about the second part of who you are, your innate strengths, specifically your instinctive drive to take action. This week, we'll talk about the third part of who you are, your learned strengths or the knowledge and skills you've acquired. And next week, we'll put it all together and look at your core strengths. We'll look at patterns and trends that reveal where these three areas of who you are overlap to create your ultimate career strengths. As usual, I want to set up our environment so your mind can easily hear and integrate the information we're covering today. First, I want to check in with your survival brain, that part of your mind that's working to keep you safe from threats, but also maybe creating some resistance to keep you stuck where you are. Have you noticed any signs of tension, worry, or avoidance this last week? Did the Colby A spark any confusion or discomfort? Was it a confirmation of what you knew subconsciously, or did it fly in the face of how you see yourself or what you were taught about how you should get things done? Both of these reactions are totally fine. One isn't better than another, they're just different. If you feel the Colby upended your view of who you are, you may be feeling a lot of unrest. Changes to our core concept of who we are can feel really threatening to our survival instinct because how we see ourselves is the foundation of how we build our lives. But changing how we see ourselves is also how we grow. It's how we gain greater self-awareness and how we open ourselves up to more opportunities for our future. If you're feeling unsettled, remember you can sign up for a Colby A Deep Dive. This one-on-one session with me can help you understand yourself and how to use your strengths better and help you realign to your true nature. It can also calm that threat response so you can keep taking steps forward. It's normal to feel some resistance when you're pushing the boundaries of what you believe is possible. And in the upcoming weeks, you might even notice that you're starting to revert back to some unwanted habits you thought you'd resolved. I'm not saying you will or you must do this, just that it's really common to feel like you're regressing a little bit in some areas when you're pushing forward in others. Regression is not a sign that you're headed in the wrong direction or that you need to abandon ship. But I do want you to pay attention to this feeling and not just push through it or ignore it. I also don't want you to beat yourself up or think something's going wrong. These behaviors are just subtle signs that you may need to slow things down a touch, ease up a bit, and give yourself some space or get more sleep. If you ignore them, it's likely they'll get more extreme, so it's worth tending to them now when they first come up. Remember that one way to calm your nervous system as you move through change is to slow down your breath. So let's step into the breathing exercise now. Wherever you are, bring your awareness into your body. Take a couple of slow, deep breaths. Now go ahead and even out your inhale and your exhale. Nothing extreme, This should feel natural in your body. By evening out the inhale and the exhale, you can consciously bring your body's nervous system into balance. If you're feeling a bit of overwhelm or chaos, this breath pattern is an excellent way to integrate the changes happening in your life and bring your body back into homeostasis. As your breath becomes even and as you're ready, go ahead and elongate your exhale. Again, nothing extreme, just a little bit longer than your inhale. This breath pattern is the opposite of what you do in fight flight. So it sends a message to your nervous system that you are safe and it's okay to relax. I'm going to hold you here for one more minute to practice, but I want you to listen to your body and stick with this pattern only as long as it's comfortable for you. You'll hear some music in the background so you know I'm here, and at the end of 1 minute, I'll let you know. You can let go of the breathing pattern and come back into a regular breath. Now that you're in a relaxed, parasympathetic rest and digest state, I want you to imagine an ideal workday. This isn't a holiday or a vacation, it's just a regular workday. I want you to notice how many tasks you do that are easier because of a skill or habit you learned at some point in your life. As you get up and get ready for the day, notice how many things like getting dressed, eating breakfast, or brushing your teeth feel like second nature. I want you to notice the ease of getting to work, whether you're driving, walking, or taking a train. You might even space out on part of your commute because you've done it so many times. I also want you to remember for a moment how much energy driving a car or taking the subway took the very first time you did it, and how effortless and automatic it is now. As you go through your workday, notice the routine tasks you do and how this ease allows you to do your work more efficiently. As you end your workday, I want you to notice how easy it is to navigate to your next destination because you've done it so many times. Take a few more moments in this ideal day to notice and appreciate any other seemingly mundane tasks that you do by habit that allow you to go through life with less effort. And as you get ready for bed in this ideal day, I want you to sink into that feeling of ease and satisfaction of this workday as you drift off to sleep. Great. As you come back into the present day, notice how your body feels just thinking about an ideal workday. Notice if it shifts anything for you. If it doesn't, that's totally fine. There's no right or wrong way to do this or feel this. We spend time imagining the qualities of our work life that we want to train the brain to focus on what we do want instead of automatically focusing on what we don't want. It's my hope that with this exercise, you can broaden your vision of what's possible a little more each time we do it. So, your learned skills and abilities are the third layer that influence your work satisfaction and longevity. It's the last layer we discuss because it's the easiest aspect to change and it has the least influence on your overall satisfaction. Your learned skills and abilities are governed by the cognitive part of your mind or your thinking mind. This is what many people think of when we say the mind. Technically, we're talking about the prefrontal cortex and what psychologists call executive function, which includes things like perception, memory, attention, language, problem solving, and learning. As usual in this course, anytime I'm talking about the aspects of the mind or the brain, I'm speaking in very general terms. The functions of our mind are highly complex and too nuanced to go into detail here. For our purposes, I'm only highlighting the aspects that relate to choosing your career. So know that when I reference the cognitive mind, I'm talking about the thinking part of your mind as opposed to the feeling or instinctive parts. Currently, we believe that we can measure cognitive ability with IQ tests, SATs, ACTs, GREs, CDLs, the bar, driver's exams, or any other test that measures what you've learned. I put a strong disclaimer on this to say we believe because many exams have biased histories at their core. Many of the creators are white, educated, wealthy, and otherwise advantaged. Some even had beliefs about superior genes, eugenics, and other profoundly flawed and problematic understandings of human potential. I'm going to spend a few minutes on this because so many people have been told that they aren't intelligent or they've decided for themselves that they aren't intelligent based on test results. These biased judgments are damaging and they can inhibit a person's true potential. It's important to be suspicious of anyone who determines that you are not intelligent, especially if they believe that you are not as intelligent as they are. If you encounter this, ask yourself if they might have an ulterior motive. And when they're talking about intelligence, are they talking about fluency, vocabulary, memory, spatial manipulation, interpersonal intelligence, analytical ability, language acquisition, problem solving, creative, synthetic, or practical intelligence? Are they talking about inborn strengths or learned skills? And are they considering influential factors like socioeconomic status, access to education, family of origin, traumatic events, and other life factors that are shown to influence a person's ability to test well? If you have experienced these biases on any level, I don't want you to dismiss this week's work. I take a much more comprehensive approach to intelligence than mere test scores and how you did in school. There are many types of intelligence. For example, a person can do really well in higher education and not have any street smarts. You can have a great memory and not know how to relate to animals at all. There are also many influential elements that allow a person to express their specific intelligence on any given day. Maybe you had a terrible teacher, or maybe an exam was biased, or maybe you were stressed or ill so you didn't have great memory recall on exam day. If you've been told that you're somehow less intelligent based on your testing ability, please take some time to do a quick search of creators and founders of standardized testing and learning institutions. See what they believed about race, gender, and class. It will open your eyes and it may change your mind about how you see yourself. And if you didn't do well in a certain subject, please reconsider your view about your ability in that subject. Here's why. I put a lot of responsibility on parents and teachers for their role in helping students learn. It's much easier to tag a child or a student as, quote, less capable than it is to admit your own lack of ability to provide the right environment at home or at school and to help that student learn. This was proven to me in spades one year when I was in school. I was fortunate enough to have an amazing calculus teacher in high school, Sue Dolezal. She had a fundamental belief that anyone could understand calculus and she would do anything in her power to help you understand the concepts. I did well in her class and I felt really confident in my abilities. But the next semester, I encountered the opposite experience. This teacher was arrogant, dismissive, unprepared, and didn't take time with students or provide resources to help us learn. I just couldn't get the concepts, and based on his feedback, I almost decided I wasn't even good at math after all. Thankfully, I was still in contact with my former teacher, and she explained the concepts to me in a way I could understand, in an hour, and she helped me pass the class. The concepts weren't rocket science, and the problem wasn't my lack of intelligence. It was an insecure teacher who was more interested in being the smartest person in the room and who wasn't skilled or committed to clearly communicating concepts and helping his students learn. Anytime a teacher or anyone else tells you that you don't have intelligence or cognitive strengths, or who tries to diminish your mental ability in any way, be skeptical of their assessment. And if it's something you're really interested in learning or it's a subject that you need to take for your career, do yourself a favor and find a better and less biased teacher before you give up on yourself. All of this is to say, everyone has cognitive strengths. Everyone has intelligence. My aim this week is to help you clearly identify yours so you can use them to amplify your dreams and enjoy a fulfilling career. Now let's talk about the role of education and learned skills in relation to choosing a career. This may seem controversial, but hear me out. Your education should not decide your path in life. When your education, especially your formal education, leads the decision about what career you should choose, you're most likely to end up in a job or a role that you're trained for, but you either dislike or you aren't really good at, or both. We're taught to think that all you need to do to find a fulfilling career is get a good education. But that's delusional, and it's not backed up by evidence. Decades of students have graduated college only to work in jobs they hate to pay for a degree they aren't using. There's also a flawed idea still hanging out there that you should go to college to find yourself and figure out your career. But that's from an era when the cost of education was much, much lower, and it's a very privileged mindset in any era. I'm going to date myself because I went to school during this era, and I want you to have context in case you encounter somebody with this belief. For reference, I graduated from an in-state school in 1996 with 2 bachelor degrees. This included 4.5, almost 5 years of education with a minimum of 18 credit hours a semester, usually more, room and board, 4 complete summer sessions, a semester abroad, plus all of my extracurricular activity. And I didn't have an extraordinary amount of scholarships or help from family to pay for school. And while I worked through college, they weren't well-paying jobs, mostly minimum wage, just enough for gas and car insurance. And when it was all said and done, my entire debt load was $11,000. Now consider that the average cost of a bachelor's degree in the United States costs nearly 6 figures. To me, it's obvious why you want to figure out your career path before you enroll and why you want to make sure your education is actually going to help you create the career and the life you really want, not just tag a societal box or make your parents happy. Now, I'm not 100% against higher education. I'm really not. I do think it can be valuable in some cases. I have degrees and certifications myself, and I may get more. What I'm against is spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a degree and going into massive debt with the expectation of magically finding a fulfilling career path by the end of your degree program. You might get lucky, but the data shows that you're most likely to end up in a job outside of your degree and in a job you don't like. In fact, only 27% of college graduates end up working in a job related to their college major. And according to Gallup, only 15% of the world's 1 billion full-time workers are engaged at work. That means 85% of the world's working population isn't tapping into their full potential and isn't fulfilled at work. So now that we know how expensive it is, what is the role of training and education? In regard to your career, any type of training, internship, class, or education is like adding a booster rocket to your natural talents and desires. When you know what problem you want to solve in the world and what your natural gifts are, then you can decide what, if any, additional training you need. Many times, you may not need more formal training to enhance your natural strengths. Or maybe that education looks like on-the-job training where you get paid to hone and master your natural talents. Let's use the example of a tennis player. When a person has a natural talent for tennis and loves playing the game, they may have the potential to play professionally. Training for them looks like getting a great coach, workouts, consistent practice, and drills and competitions to test their ability. Their training amplifies their natural talent and allows them to enhance their raw potential and gain a level of mastery or genius. The same could be true of someone with a natural talent for business. They may have been selling things and running businesses from the time they were a child. The training they need could look like learning as they go, joining masterminds, going to conferences, and reading books. They might get an MBA if it makes sense, but it also may be more beneficial for them to seek out the specific training like marketing that helps them refine the natural talents they already possess so they can run a great business. Again, the bottom line is that training and education should amplify your talents and, more importantly, your desires. Decide on what you want to do first, what you're really good at, and only then decide if you need more education. One area I want you to investigate and inventory before you spend time or money in any training program is what you already know. Similar to what preferences you already have, what innate strengths you already possess, I'm interested in what learned skills and abilities you already have. And for this discussion, I'm not just talking about what you've learned in school. In fact, I'm most curious about the skills and abilities you've learned outside the classroom. Our informal skills and knowledge often get overlooked, especially with the hype around diplomas, awards, tassels, and fancy letters behind your name. But your informal skills are rich with information and clues that can help you see and clarify your path. I define informal learning as everything you have learned that you didn't learn in a classroom. Everything from learning to walk and learning your native language, to driving a stick shift, negotiating the price of a car, diving off a high dive, folding the laundry, or making a killer creme brulee. You weren't born knowing any of this, you definitely learned them. You just didn't learn them in school. Let's brainstorm for a minute in case you need some ideas to get started. What have you learned how to do in your lifetime? Did you learn to walk and communicate? Maybe you learned to eat with utensils. That actually took a lot of practice and training. Maybe you learned to play an instrument, or maybe you had to learn to use a wheelchair. What about cross-stitch, mowing the lawn, writing haikus, fishing, sewing, dancing, swimming? What about managing money or backing up a truck and trailer? Maybe you learned how to make a meal or how to win an argument with your brother, or how to keep your room clean and keep your parents off your back. You may have learned how to behave in certain situations. You may have learned cultural norms. All of this is informal learning that we often dismiss. But these real-life skills are often far more important in your career than your diploma, and they can really help you stand out. It can be valuable to know how to operate a forklift or know which spoon to use in a formal business dinner, but these aren't something you normally learn in a standard school system. Even the more challenging parts of your childhood and life are worth looking at if it isn't too painful. Oftentimes, I find that the most challenging areas of our lives reveal great areas of mastery and expertise. Maybe you learned to read a room as a child because you needed that skill to keep yourself safe when you were young. Maybe you developed resilience or optimism in the face of adversity. Or maybe you learned to negotiate, mediate, or keep the peace during a divorce. Maybe you learned other skills about how to get your needs met in difficult times. The skills and abilities you mastered as you learned to survive through these events of your life count as some of the most highly valuable informal learning you have. And this perspective is a tangible way to take those difficult experiences and turn them into assets that finally work to your advantage in your career and in your life. Another differentiation I want to make is which abilities in your life are learned skills and what are natural talents. And here's why. Your learned skills, no matter how habitual they are, will always take more energy to use than your instinctive strengths. As much as possible, you want to center your career around your inborn abilities, so we want to know the difference between them. Take a look at this continuum of energy diagram that goes from most effort on the left to least effort on the right. Learning something brand new that isn't in your wheelhouse of natural strengths will require the most amount of energy, while doing a task using your innate strengths will take you the least amount of energy. Practice and repetition will make a learned skill easier, and it may even turn into a habit, but that learned skill will still require more energy than your natural strengths. I'll give you an example from my own life to illustrate. My 2 in follow-through on the Kolbe A means I have a natural ability to adapt and be flexible. But I was raised in a very, very orderly household that taught me to be highly organized and systematic. For a long time, I thought I was naturally organized, so I regularly applied for jobs that required a lot of systemization and maintenance. Inevitably, I would end up struggling with the rigid systems and the need for copious amounts of consistency and planning. Unfortunately, I interpreted my inner struggle as a need for more training in time or project management, or that I wasn't dedicated or determined enough. I literally thought I was inherently lazy and I wasn't trying hard enough, which is honestly the opposite of my personality. I couldn't understand why other people weren't struggling in these areas and why they didn't feel like rebelling against the straitjacket of corporate life like I did. It wasn't until I took the Kolbe A, and more importantly, was really honest with myself about what my natural abilities were and what they weren't, that I understood why I would repeatedly burn out in these kinds of jobs. I had a hard time admitting that I wasn't naturally organized because being organized held a high value in my household, at school, and in my jobs. It was only when I fully understood that my inborn strength was adaptability and let go of who I thought I was supposed to be that I was able to align my career toward the work that required flexibility as a core strength, and that's where I started thriving. Before that point, I honestly didn't realize that being able to adapt to a client's needs on the fly was a gift, or that being able to shift priorities on a dime was something everyone didn't do naturally. It came so naturally to me that I didn't value it, and I put such a high value on the opposite of my natural gift that I unknowingly undermined my own ability to reach my full potential. Understanding the difference between my inborn strengths and my learned skills also allowed me to see that my learned organizational skills were still valid. I didn't have to throw them out the window or completely abandon keeping things in order. It's still a useful skill set. But because it's not an innate ability, I no longer center my work around it. It's a secondary learned strength that I use from time to time, but it's not what I do all day, every day in my job. And this is the clarity around your skills and abilities that I want for you. I want you to know the difference so that you can make a choice. One way to visualize centering your career around your natural strengths and having your learned strengths be secondary is in the diagram below. You want your innate strengths to be the large majority of the work you do. And I want to be clear that this isn't a mandate. This is just a model or a target to work toward. No one is working 100% in their area of strength 100% of the time. This is just encouragement that as much as you can, when you can, You want your work to center around what comes most naturally to you. One question I hear consistently from clients is, what about the parts of my job that I have to do that I don't like and I'm not good at? Don't we just have to suck it up sometimes and get things done? Yes, but here are some caveats. First, ideally, that type of work shouldn't be the bulk of what you're doing long term. Second, when it's necessary, there are ways to ease the stress of the things we don't like to do or that we aren't naturally hardwired for. This is actually an area where training and practice serve a fantastic role to ease stress and reduce the amount of effort required in our day-to-day work. Practice and training can fill in the gaps when you don't have a natural talent for something, but you need to get the job done. In a perfect world, we would be able to delegate everything that doesn't come naturally, but that's not always possible. For example, maybe you need to take a job outside your natural skill set to cover the bills. That makes perfect sense and may be a good reason to work outside your core strengths temporarily until you find a better fit. Maybe you own a business and you had an employee leave, so you need to pick up the slack until you find someone to fill that role. Or maybe someone you know gets sick and they need your help to navigate the healthcare or legal systems. Doing work that doesn't come naturally can even be by choice as part of your bigger plan. Say you want to live in a northern mountain town far away from urban services like dealerships or mechanics. It may make sense for you to learn the basics of fixing your vehicle, even if you don't like doing it or you aren't a natural, because in this case, learning to do vehicle maintenance would be preferable to breaking down in the middle of nowhere in the winter. When you don't have a natural strength in an area, if you spend enough time practicing and learning the skill, the mechanisms of your brain will help that skill become a routine. It will always take more energy than your natural strengths, but far less energy than doing it for the first time. This learned behavior is where the phrase second nature comes from. It's not your first nature, that's your instinct and your natural strength. Second nature, or a learned skill that's now a habit, is a behavior that appears to be instinctive because you've done it or studied it for so long that it feels natural. Think about driving a car or brushing your teeth. These are likely second nature if you learn to do them at a young age or you've been doing them for a long time. Second nature skills are a good way to mitigate work that you have to do yourself, but that's outside of your innate strengths or interests. We'll talk more about how to build these types of habits later in the course. For now, I just want you to notice the difference between your learned strengths and your innate strengths and write them down. So let's put all this into practice. There are only 2 exercises this week, but they're big exercises. I'll walk you through them now, and you can go back and do them when you have time. Because these are big lists, I recommend sitting down to do a brain dump in the beginning and then adding to it each day as new things occur to you. And if you're feeling resistance or rolling your eyes at having to do these exercises, or you're thinking about skipping them, please know that these lists will serve you for the rest of your career. If you're in high school, these are lists you can keep track of that will make college admissions easier. If you're in college or you're working, this will make resumes and CVs easier. And if you own a business, these lists make your bios, about pages, and marketing so much simpler. One of my favorite entrepreneurs, Rachel Rogers, uses the principle of work hard once, and that really applies well here. It's also a great time to practice using your Colby A strengths to figure out the easiest way for you to get this done. And I have worksheets available for you if you like the official form. Again, I'm not picky about how you capture the information, just that you capture it. In the first exercise, I want you to inventory everything you've learned. Yes, everything. This will be a long list, and I want you to start with the day you were born. What skills did you acquire as a kid? Did you build forts, or draw, read, or paint? Think about each year of your life. Did you bring home injured animals as a child? Did you start secret clubs? Were you great at throwing parties? Can you recite poetry? Can you ride a unicycle or juggle? Maybe you were in a garage band. Or maybe you learned to balance a checkbook. Do you know how to do the Lindy Hop? It all counts, no matter how unrelated to your career it seems. Please trust me on this. Also think about what you learned from other people. Did your mom teach you to fix a truck? Did your grandmother teach you another language? Did your friends teach you to play canasta? Maybe you learned to swim at a pool, or maybe your brother taught you to braid your hair. I know mine did. No one ever has to see this list, so don't be shy. This isn't the time for humility. This is the time to list your entire catalog of knowledge, skills, experience, and life lessons. And if you aren't sure if something is formal or informal, use this formula. Preschool through high school, higher education, and certificates, that's all formal. Everything else is informal. Exercise 2 is where we'll pay attention to your formal education, not because it's the most important part of your career planning, but so you have a complete picture of your learned skills and abilities, formal and informal. In this exercise, I'll ask you to write down all of your formal education. This includes all of your pre-kindergarten classes, your degrees, certificates, awards, trophies, badges, diplomas, or any other type of formal education. This also includes training and awards in speech and debate, school sports, music, theater, arts, student government, language clubs, school-related volunteer work, science Olympiads, spelling bees, or any other extracurricular activities. Also note what kind of school you went to. Were you homeschooled? Did you study abroad? Did you go to a Montessori school or a charter school or a more traditional school or university? Also, don't forget about your less traditional formal education. Did you rebel and go to floral design school one summer? I know I did. Hey, don't judge. Are you a certified yoga instructor? Do you have your wilderness first responder, first aid, WSI, or lifeguard certifications? Are you trained to teach adaptive skiing? Are you a master gardener? What are your weird but formal certifications and awards? Next, I want you to list your job experiences. This includes everything from your first lemonade stand to your current job. For this, it's totally okay to pull from your resume, but I'm not interested in your title, just the skills and abilities you've learned on the job. And be sure to include every single job, even jobs you may not be proud of. All jobs are good jobs in my book, and all jobs teach you something. The last exercise is a bonus exercise, and I want to include a disclaimer on this. This exercise isn't for everyone. I only recommend this if it feels right for you. If this is too triggering or emotionally difficult, feel free to skip it. It's not essential to get good results from this class. I call this exercise dark into light because it can transform the darker, more challenging parts of our lives, like divorces, personal failures, death of those close to us, or difficult childhoods, into more positive assets that we can use to change our lives for the better. We've all had to face adversity in our lives, and as we heal and recover from those experiences, we can emerge stronger and more resilient than before. There's a Japanese practice called kintsugi, or the golden repair, which I believe is a good metaphor for this. In this practice, broken pottery is repaired with gold lacquer. This repair highlights and honors the repair and the history of the vessel rather than disguising or discarding it. This type of intentional golden repair can happen with our own histories as well. Also, when I say light, I don't mean a soft, flowy, happy light. I mean a laser, because when we're challenged in extreme situations, we gain extreme mastery. This exercise may go slower and may take more reflection than the previous exercises. It may take time and patience to consider this experience in another light. It's absolutely not meant to negate or excuse the experience or the actions of others or yourself. The intent is to reveal the mastery you've gained as you've overcome these challenges. So consider the darker, more difficult, embarrassing, or regretful times of your life. What skills did you master because of these most challenging, devastating, or awful circumstances? These are your areas of extreme strength and mastery. Again, if this exercise seems too dark, too deep, or too emotionally heavy, please skip it. As always, I want to give you the common mind traps I see when clients are working through their learned skills and abilities. And I don't see these mindsets as excuses, but just ways our brains are trying to preserve energy and keep us alive. Being aware of the mind traps allows us to make a choice and decide if the shortcut our brain is trying to take serves us well or not. Mind trap number 1 is I don't have a degree. My gut reaction to this is always, good, you haven't wasted any money. Going to college to figure out what you want to do with your life is an incredibly expensive way to do it. The average college student spends between $50,000 and $200,000 on a 4-year bachelor degree. About 1/3 of students change their majors, and roughly 1 in 10 switch majors more than once. And only 27% of college graduates end up working in a job related to their college major. I'm not saying higher education is bad, but you need to decide on your direction first. Find out what you're naturally gifted at, what you find fulfilling, and what problem you want to solve in the world, and then decide on what kind of education you need. When I moved to New York City after college, it only took me 2 auditions to realize that I didn't need a degree or a high GPA to be a successful classical singer. I needed to know how to sell myself, how to master auditioning and crush my performances. I didn't need a degree to do any of that. In fact, I thought my degree put me behind 4 years. I would have been better off moving to New York City or Germany right off the bat, spending my money on a top-notch agent, studying scores, and auditioning my butt off. If I needed to fill in the gaps of my knowledge, I could have studied with experts, taken classes at prominent schools, and made better connections in New York City than were possible in Montana. Mind trap number 2 is, I already know this. I realize you may have heard this before, but if your career isn't exactly the way you want it right now, you've only acquired the mental knowledge, not the practical skill of creating a great career. Knowledge without real-life application is interesting for a dinner party conversation, but it won't change your daily existence. This is one of my personal mind traps. It shows up anytime I take a class, especially if it's something that will bring me to a new level of success or happiness. If you aren't putting this information into action, you don't fully know it. Understanding the engineering principles of building a bridge is great, but until you've actually constructed a bridge, your knowledge may as well be in the library. The point of taking civil engineering classes isn't so people think you're smart, it's so that you can build bridges. The material in this course is the same. You may know the elements of choosing the right career, but until you've put it into practice, there's something more for you to learn. Mind trap number 3 is I'm not smart enough. We used to think intelligence could be measured in a test, but now we know that only some types of intelligence can be identified that way. We now know that there are as many types of intelligence as there are people on the planet. Tests only reveal one type of smart. You might fall into a mindset like, I'm not good at math, or I can't cook because you didn't have a good teacher, or you haven't had the opportunity to practice enough. And sometimes you aren't being educated or tested in an area of strength for you. If the mind trap, I'm not smart enough, haunts you, try this question. What am I smart about? Maybe you're street smart, animal savvy, or you have great common sense. Common sense is a huge asset in life. If you need more evidence about this, check out this interview with Bryce Dallas Howard about how she used her unique perspective and her gift of common sense to create her career as an artist. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this quote from Adele Diamond, a professor of developmental cognitive neuroscience at the University of British Columbia. She was asked at the end of an interview if there was anything the audience should know, and this is what she said. Besides ignoring a lot of the wisdom of past generations, I think we also ignore the wisdom of people who don't have the fancy degrees and fancy positions, and I think that's a shame. As you go through the exercises this week, please don't discount your own wisdom, intelligence, ability, and skills just because it didn't come with a fancy wrapper. Your learned abilities are profound, and you can use them to change your own life and the lives of those around you. So let's get you set up for the week so you have a clear plan of action. Your main focus for this week is to take inventory of your formal and informal skills. I want you to spend the majority of your time thinking about your informal skills. Talk to friends or family members, look through old journals and pictures, and think about your life year by year. I know it sounds like a lot of work, and you might be feeling some inventory fatigue, but we're almost through this section of the course, and these lists will help you clarify your direction now and for years to come. I also recommend that you continue reading the quick morning emails to help you integrate what you're learning, and do at least 1 minute of the breathing exercise every day. Slowing down your breath for just 60 seconds a day can make a huge difference in your ability to learn. As always, you can find all of the research and diagrams I've mentioned today in the transcript that's available for download anywhere you're listening to this. Next week, we're going to put this all together and look at your patterns and stacking. Stacking is where the strengths in different areas of your mind layer on top of one another. This is where you find your area of genius, your sweet spot. These are the things you're natural at, you like, and you have practiced. To close, I want to remind you that you can do this work. Even if you feel a lot of resistance to doing it, you have what it takes to really understand who you are and what strengths you possess. Nothing I'm asking you to do is out of your ability. If you're here in this course, it is not by accident. You are ready to do the work and find the career you really want. I'll talk to you next time.